Hey guys, it's Elaine, the Ninja Life Coach, and welcome to my channel today. Today, we're going to talk about when God says something. So sit back, grab yourselves a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Hey everybody, I'm back. And oftentimes we think about when God speaks, especially in the evangelical community. We think about when God has given us a personal word. Now, I'm not talking about that necessarily, although those times that I feel like God has spoken to my heart or I've perceived that God was talking to me, those are very special times in my life, and those are times that I will never forget. But I'm actually today talking about God's written word. And we can see a perfect example of this in the first chapter of Genesis. All the way through the book of Genesis, you can see God moving in the lives of the creation and the patriarchs on through the end of the book of Genesis. But specifically today, I want to talk about Genesis, the first chapter. In Genesis, the first chapter, we see God creating the heaven and the earth. We see him creating the plants. We see him creating water. We see him doing a lot of creating in Genesis 1. What we don't see in Genesis 1 is God creating mankind. He doesn't do that till later on. But he created all of this other stuff and then created man. So when God first started creating things, there was no one here, human, to hear him. So I think that speaks to the powerful aspect of God's word, because everything he spoke, it came into existence immediately. There was no lapse time. There was no time to say, well, let me think about it. Maybe I want to wait for a few days before I come into existence. No, it wasn't like that. When God spoke something, it came to pass, and it came to pass rapidly. Then at the end of Genesis chapter 1, we have the whole of creation except for mankind. Now, we could argue that mankind came in and ruined God's perfect creation, but I want us to focus today on when God speaks. What happens when God speaks? When God speaks, things happen. Things come into being. Things that haven't been here before are suddenly spoken into existence. Now, let's not get carried away about that statement that I've just made. I'm talking about things that God says, not things you or I declare. I'm not talking about that, because sometimes we can declare all day and nothing happens. So I think there's a lot of erroneous teaching in that area. When God says something, we don't need to wait. We don't need to pray. We don't need to, try to explain things away. We need to understand that when God says something in his word, it happened. It came to pass. It was here. What is different now than however many years ago it was when God created the earth? What's different? Well, I think society's different. I think humankind is different in the way that we, interact with society. But of all these things that are different, God isn't different. So let's think about it. What's different now than however many hundreds of thousands of millions of years ago that God created the earth? What's different now? Has God changed? God hasn't changed. Society has changed. Environment has changed. Community has changed. But God hasn't. He is exactly the same as he is in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Nothing has changed with God since the first book of Genesis to the last book of Revelation. Nothing. What we have to understand as humans is that we change. We are the ones that move away from God. We are the ones that go follow after things that we have no business messing around with. We are the ones that simply do not take God at his word. That would be us, ladies and gentlemen. us. So if there is a failure in your life, something that you have asked God to do, and it just has not come to pass, and it doesn't look like it's going to come to pass, don't blame God for that. Because God gave us clear instructions in His Word. Something to stand on, something that's faithful, something that's rock solid. And I think what happens sometimes is we perceive that God may be speaking to us or telling us something, and we don't go back and check His Word to see, okay, what does the Bible say about this? And I think that's where we miss it. And look, folks, I am not a theologian. I am not, going to tell you that maybe it's this or maybe it's the Greek word or the Hebrew word or this or that. I have done some of that study, but I'm not knowledgeable on that. I'm just one woman trying to muddle her way through here on planet Earth and trying to help people. That's all I am. I'm just trying, based on my experience, to give you a little bit of encouragement today. When you, in fact, think God has given you something and it just crumbles. And let's face it, folks, that does happen. There have been times when I thought that I heard God clearly tell me something. I thought I perceived that in my spirit, and it didn't happen. That happens because we're human and we make mistakes, and I've made them too. So these are things that we know that are sure that we can stand on, and we can rest assured if God tells us, let there be light, light is going to shine. One thing that God will always answer, the prayer that He always answers, is, Lord, shine your light so I'm not deceived. God answers that prayer 100% of the time. So if you've jumped ahead of God a time or two, like I have, and you may have to reap the sow of that, take heart from that. Because all you have to do is say, Lord, I evidently missed this somewhere and I was deceived. Show me where I was deceived so that I don't make this mistake again. And God will show you that 100% of the time. He doesn't have a desire for us to be deceived. He has a desire for us to be close to Him and walk in truth, walk in patience, walk in love, walk in kindness, the fruits of the Spirit. He has that desire. And when our desires align up with His, then that is a very great place to be. Because when we align ourselves with God, when we are perceiving God is speaking to us, then we will be able to go back and look at His Word and validate that. And not just validate it by a feeling or some wishy-washy thing that I've been guilty of it too. Oh, I got goosebumps. It must be true. Well, goosebumps are just, basically when you shave your legs and get cold. I'm just saying, folks, can't confirm anything like that. It just does not work. We have to confirm everything by God's Word because it is sure, it is perfect, and at the end of the day, it's what we need. Because if we walk in God's way and we trust God in our way that we walk, He isn't going to let us down and He's not going to leave us behind. Even in those dark days, He never leaves us nor forsake us. And you know what? His Word is still sure, and what He said is still coming to pass. Creation is still going on, folks, every single day, based on the words that God spoke into existence back in Genesis. Listen, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Check out the links down in the description box. I love you guys. God bless you. Maranatha, folks.